Hello, Mary.
Hi, Sally.
Thank you all for coming to SCADstyle to see Mary, and I hope you all stay after to go to see her amazing show, which opens tonight. The museum show is a retrospective of Mary's first 10 years, and I just want to start by asking you, before all that work, what was the one thing you took away from university at St. Martin's? I mean, now that we're in a university setting.
It's interesting because I think university years pass by so fast and you don't realize what they taught you until much, much later. But I think studying in the UK allowed you to have a very individual path. So I think what it taught me mostly is to be able to stand behind my work, know what came before me in order to push my work into the future and know how to stand behind your work and be confident about it, because I started so shy. I was like trembling when somebody asked me. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I would never put myself forward unless somebody gave me that nudge and that push. And then you realize when you start your own brand that you need to be your best advocate and you need to be able to communicate your work. And so I think it taught me exactly that, to be able to stand behind my work and talk about what I stand for, what it's about, and try to connect with people through your work.
Because at school at St. Martin's, by the time you do your final graduation collection, you're essentially launched in the industry. Is that?
And I think, my BA wasn't even in fashion, it was in textile design. So I just saw my fellow classmates doing things in 3D while I was designing prints for rugs and curtains and flat surface. And then I realized there's a whole new world out there when you start mapping your design and your artwork around the female figure and work in 3D. So when I went to do my master's at Central St. Martin's looking at fashion, I felt like a novice, and I had to study 100 years of fashion that came before me. I was doing family trees of what designer inspired what designer, what had happened in fashion. So I came with not a fashion background and quite naively into the picture. And I think there's probably, for me, no better way to have done it, because I wasn't intimidated. I was open to everything, and I think that's what helped me at the beginning when I first started. I was launched to it, but I didn't know, the dangers behind it, or I wasn't intimidated by what I didn't know. So I was like, of course, yes, I can do this.
That's why those clothes from the outset were so, and you'll see this in the show, we're so joyous and we're so kind of free in a way. Mm-hmm. One thing I remember that was very interesting for your development when you first started was that you did clothes that obviously could be worn by people, and you'll see them in the show, jersey dresses, they're in a print, they look like perfume bottles and the like. But you also made early on collections that we call showpieces in fashion. They're the sort of clothes that I think students often like to make, which are quite conceptual, quite sculptural. People say, who's ever going to wear that, etc. And I remember early on, you said, well, I think certain people in fashion were saying, how are you going to build a business off these X $1,000 one-offs? And you said, well, there's these women in America who buy these things, and they don't want the other things. So there was a perception that you had a customer in America for the most extravagant things you did from the outset, who were collecting and wearing.
And I think I actually see that even more so today. I think then I would single certain women out and maybe generalize that, there's an audience as such, but you have a small independent business. So any woman coming, and I remember there were women who came to me, and a particular woman, actually Canadian, who, when I launched the lampshade collection, she said, if you did everything to a certain length, I would buy your entire collection. And I didn't really make much of it. I was like, that's never going to happen. And then I returned to London after a trip to Toronto, and there she is, just requesting if it's actually possible. And we did. We lengthened everything. We did everything made to measure to her. And it's a beautiful thing to know that your archive exists in the world in women's closet. And I think it's times have shifted now in a way that there's an appreciation of independent designers and wearing something unique, knowing that it will stand the test of time, and it's not trend driven. It's something you'll have in your wardrobe for years to come. And even if it's not a print that's done on a wardrobe staple, it's something that you'll pull out, and it's something that you've invested in, and it's part of a selection. And it's equally rewarding to me, a woman, to buy a showpiece, as you said, from the show, as it is to put a print or an embellishment or use color on something they can wear daily in their lives. You know, they serve different purposes, but because I didn't come from fashion, I actually started the flip side. I started very commercially driven in the printed, most of the work, the silhouette was simple, but then I felt I had to prove to myself, or not prove, but discover myself as a designer. So every show was an opportunity to test new things, make new discoveries, and that's what excited me, just discovering who I am as a designer. So I think it was self-fulfilling initially, and now it's become a business where women buy it because there's narrative, there's storytelling, and it's an individual piece that they can't find somewhere else.
Well, it's also very relevant right now when we try to think about sustainability in fashion and, you know, who is buying things and how do you encourage the consumer to buy pieces to wear over time and where actual luxury and value lies. So you've been doing that from the start with these women who collect your clothes. You know, it doesn't diminish your customer base, but it deepens it.
I think it makes it such a meaningful connection because also you get to travel and meet these women. So when when you work on a show, you have an understanding of who your woman is, and the more understanding you have of the woman that you design for, the more those showpieces actually are not just an exploration of your creativity. It actually is for a woman that you know will appreciate if there's innovation in the technique. They'll appreciate if it's a silhouette they've never seen before. They'll appreciate the uniqueness of it. So you push yourself almost to do something that you've never done before. So it pushes you creatively, and it's those women that are actually doing it behind the scenes because you know that if that market exists for you and there's an appreciation, and I think there's more so, you're completely right, more so today. I have clients that come to me saying, we don't want to buy that much fashion, we're tired of it, we don't want to have and own that many clothes, we want to buy from designers that we love and we admire, and I'm so lucky to have a loyal customer 10 years on that comes season after season. I'm so appreciative, and I think I would never have thought that at the beginning.
How many one-off pieces, how many demi-couture pieces can your studio produce
Not
in a
that
season?
many. On the level of the show, but sometimes, you know, private client to me might be that they do something from scratch, bespoke, and then you need 3 months to create that, or it could be somebody who's buying from the show but made to their measurements. So made to their measurements, we probably produce I want to say less than 100 pieces, but it could be up to 100 pieces within 6 months. So all the production that we do at a wholesale level, we do in our factories, and everything that we do made to measure and bespoke, we do it in-house. So we kind of scale, based on the demand of that season, our freelance capacity. So our atelier is still so small.
How many people?
So we're 20 people in the company full-time.
Okay.
That is all of us. And then we kind of expand when we need to. And a lot of our pattern cutters and our machinists and the atelier is freelancers that we kind of bring in for a project. So it's allowed me to have an incredible atelier to produce the show collections because they're there year-round producing all these small orders. So I think it's not to be underestimated now. I think at some point we used to, turn some things down and say we cannot. And now we've made, we've analyzed what it would mean to be able to run it all year round, and we do because I think it's an opportunity for them to buy your work that is so personal, and it would be a shame not to. So we try to find a way to do it so we don't turn anyone down. But of course, if it's a completely bespoke piece, you don't have the capacity. It means new designs, new embroideries, new everything.
So let's talk about completely bespoke pieces you do for very famous bodies. Like what's it like to dress Beyonce?
Well, Beyonce had an effect on me that I wasn't expecting, to be honest. The Beyonce effect, yes. I was like, I can't believe I'm fangirling. I never expect I would. So I'm very calm. It doesn't make a difference to me if a woman is a VIP, a celebrity. Obviously, if I know her work and I respect her work, it means something, but it's no different to a woman who I would meet and I respect her for the work I'd get to discover. So the creative director for the Global Citizen Festival called me to ask me to design something for Beyonce. And then I never heard back. We did some designs, never heard back. I thought, okay, it's probably not going to happen. Then he called back and he said, okay, everything's confirmed, Mary. We need the dress to be there. She's performing on the 2nd of December. And I think it was just like a week, 7 days before, but we hadn't done anything up to that point. He will kill me if this ever gets communicated. And I was like, it is impossible. It's impossible. We don't have the pattern. We had designed a bespoke thing with mapping out the 54 countries of Africa. It wasn't a thing based on something we've done before. So it was like, Mary, it's Beyonce. I was like, yeah, it's Beyonce. So I go to my team. I was like, guys, this is Beyonce. They're like, Mary, it's impossible. It's a public holiday in India. We can't get embroidery done so fast here. We don't have the hands. We called everyone we knew, begged, designed it, put it together, back and forth with her creative director, delivered it on time. It kind of flew to Africa. And then, there's a chart, there's measurements, there's everything. And so then I was just WhatsApping him saying, how's everything? Is everything okay? And he was like, yes, Mary, it's okay, but now it's in the hands of God. And I was like, why is it in the hands of God? I was like, why is it in the hands of God? Is she not going to wear it? And then I was like, oh, but is anything wrong, with the fit, anything? He's like, it's not up to us anymore. I was like, who's it up to? So I was like, he's letting me down softly. She's not going to wear it. It's not going to happen. So I didn't expect her to wear it. And I didn't realize that they had commissioned so many designers and big, big houses to do it. I thought it was just a handful. And unless there's a big problem, she's going to wear it. Because we don't usually do pieces bespoke for celebrities because we don't have the resources to do that. We cannot do it. So anyway, I was watching the Global Citizen Festival, talking on my phone with a friend. I was like, she's not going to wear it. I was doing work on the side, and they were talking about the 100 years of Mandela, and then I didn't look for a moment. And then I looked to my right, and Beyonce has already been on stage. She's in my outfit, and she's opened the show. And I started screaming, hung up on my friend, and took my phone and started videoing my screen. I was like, Mary, what are you doing? But I think because I didn't expect it, and because you could see the emotion when she was performing in Africa and the love she was giving and receiving, it felt very special to be part of it. And then I found out that amazing designers were commissioned and not used, so then I understood why he was saying it's in the hands of God. It's not in our hands anymore. I was like, thankfully it got to somebody's hands and made the right decision.
You prayed really hard
Yes.
that week.
So that meant a lot, I think, because it was unexpected.
Now, talk about the dress that's in the museum show that Kate Blanchett wore when she was the chair or the head of the panel at Cannes.
Yeah.
How did that process work? Because that's a very different process. God was fully there with you the whole way. Angels, God.
God was with me, yes, and it was a very different process, and I think I could feel how special it was when we were creating the dress because we did it with her stylist and with Kate herself, and so it felt like a very intimate project, and I felt very privileged.
It was based on a dress from the show.
Yes.
So it was taking and expanding an existing, it's a paint by numbers.
Yes, it was a collection based on the idea of nostalgia, and we did these big balloon dresses, and the print was a paint by number, floral print, and half of it was black and white, half of it was in floral, and Elizabeth Stewart, her stylist, had reached out straight after we did the show in September saying, this dress should have a moment. Kate will look incredible. Can you send it for her to try it so we can see if she likes it? I send it. She sent me a picture. Kate is there. She's holding a Starbucks coffee. Very excited. Elizabeth Stewart was like, she loves it. And I think there's something about it, we were talking about it earlier, there's something about that dress because it's paint by numbers, there's something very nostalgic and innocent about that, and there's, it kind of stands behind positivity because it's so floral, and actually Alex was mentioning the Time's Up movement and how everyone had been already communicating on the red carpet in black.
Yeah, this is the moment after the red carpet went black for the Globes, was it?
Globes.
And then sort of the Oscars and then into Cannes. So
it was kind of on the end of that, and it actually was meaningful, I think, for every woman what they chose to wear because everything became, it became an opportunity for fashion to be making some sort of statement. And
well, certainly not a cynical moment. Like you couldn't just wear cantilevered cleavage and get away with it. It was finally a moment where
that wasn't the moment
your body was not supposed to be the point on the red carpet. So
and I think because she was going to be heading the jury at Cannes, they were waiting for confirmation, so they embargoed any press on the dress. We kept it very silent, and then we waited 3 months until we heard back, and then at which point she was confirmed to be the president of the jury, and then they commissioned the dress, and we had, I think, 2 months or 3 months, 2 months to create it. And we basically took all months that were needed to create it, but she was involved we did fittings with her personally. I wanted to fit it on her, everything had to be precise, and she was involved in the placement of the flowers and the embroidery in everything. So having that moment, and I think when you're near somebody like her, I already adored who she is and what she stands for, but she is so witty and so intelligent and so generous with everything that you wanted everything to be perfect. So, I can't even explain how many people touched that dress, but everyone gave all their dedication and love because of who she is. So in the end, this dress became a beast of a dress. Couldn't fly commercially. Couldn't fly commercial.
Yeah.
Couldn't fit in a suitcase. We called Selfridges. We called everyone to find a suitcase big enough for this dress. No suitcase could host this dress. We couldn't get a box fast enough. Couldn't get a private jet, couldn't get anyone to get to Cannes. So this guy with a truck drove Kate Blanchett's dress overnight to Cannes to get it there and deliver it at Hotel Martinez, I think. So it kind of, I think, it couldn't have gotten there in any other way, honestly. And if you come and see the exhibition, you'll understand it's a beast of a dress.
It's not a beast of a dress.
No,
It's a spectacular creation. It's the one in the show that's twirling.
It revolves, yeah. It glistens and revolves alone.
Yeah.
On its own.
So that's what it's like to collaborate with sort of big talent. You've done so many collaborations over the years, and I'm assuming that's the way you've had investment in your company over time and been able to pay yourself a salary. In fashion, I'm just going to say to everyone as a student, you don't really make a lot of money for a really long time, right?
Yeah.
I can say that.
I can say that 10 years on, I still don't make a lot
You
of money.
don't make a lot of money. So, but Mary, you've been so good at doing a whole range of collaborations, from the Longchamp bags. Collaborations that stick, that people remember them and collect them and want them. Can you talk a little bit about working with companies as large as Disney and Victoria's Secret and what those were like? And Victoria's Secret actually in the post-Me Too movement as well.
Yes, so I think with every collaboration, it's kind of there's a different point to be made for every collaboration, but I've done a few, so I won't bore everyone. But I think my intention is my work is mostly about narrative and storytelling, and there's a strong visual impact to my work that because you're building a ready-to-wear business, you don't have the know-how and the expertise to be able to expand beyond, the resources that you have and the limitations of building a fashion business. And so it was an opportunity. It wasn't necessarily every time we collaborated, the motivation wasn't financial, although it's a big help in the moment it happens. It was more to expand your audience, for more people to know what the Mary Katrantzou world looks like, and to be able to put your imprint and your signature on, with Longchamp bags, with Adidas sneakers. It's, brands I grew up around. They're global iconic brands, and it is an honor to be asked to be part of that and to expand your universe. So, and also the know-how, to do outerwear like Moncler does with the technical expertise, we would never be able to produce at that level. So it was kind of my inquisitive nature to also learn more, understand more. So I think at the beginning it was mostly that, broadening our awareness as a company. So more as a marketing opportunity, and also, an opportunity to really learn.
It also grows the world. It grows the product offerings that you
absolutely
have.
That you could never do. Definitely not at the level. We can never produce a sneaker at the time that we collaborated with Adidas to match that. I like partnering creatively with brands because my work is visual. So you can adapt it and you can apply a print on different product, and it feels genuine and it feels authentic. And I think after we did a few collaborations, I wanted the focus to be back on the brand, because you can get lost when you do collaborations one after the other with big global brands. First of all, they take a lot of the time of a small team, and something gets missed in your own collection and the devotion that you put in your own work. And also, I think when you take all that, you need to have an audience to be able then to market your own product. But if your price point isn't democratic enough to have done an Adidas collaboration and then offer something, there's nothing to be gained in terms of the awareness you're gaining as a brand, because you cannot then sell anything to them apart from, them knowing who you are and hopefully, embracing that and loving what you do. So now, every collection we did, it's kind of a more strategic one where you think about, the product that you might want to do. So we're doing certain collaborations now in home because home feels well placed for us to create product in that category beyond ready to wear.
It's also like you're slightly going home because you started from prints that could be applied in the home, and you actually made a print that was of the home for a while there.
I know, I feel you map out your intent when you start out, and you don't even realize that, in the first kind of few years of, your brand and launching your brand, you've already tapped into the categories.
You just need to make lampshades now.
But something like Victoria's Secret, for example, because you touched on it, and I think it's relevant in different ways. Victoria's Secret, I was approached by Sophia Fitu, who's a very good friend of mine, who called me from Greece saying, I have a crazy idea, how would you feel collaborating with Victoria's Secret? And I said, of all the million things I could have thought that you called me for, I would have never thought it's going to be for Victoria's Secret. And it was interesting to me that up until that point, I saw girls in my studio like watching Victoria's Secret shows and being very excited whenever that happens. I had never watched a Victoria's Secret show. I never had Victoria's Secret product. And yet when she told me that, I make most of my decisions based on intuition and instinct, and something in me really wanted to do it. Being very aware that it's also a time that anything that any product that is somehow connected to a woman's sexuality and the conversation that is happening and revolving around it will be a conversation that I need to partake. So I met the team. I love Sophia. I love the team that I met, and I felt, in my work, there's something very asexual about what I design. Everyone is covered up. There's nothing really revealed. It's more about how you're expressing a part of your personality. It's very exuberant and expressive and imaginative, but it's never about it's quite modest.
You've
I must say.
done the long sleeves and longer lengths.
Yes, and actually, the more I can cover a body, to me, the more surface I can cover, the better.
More print. You've got
more print, more surface, more canvas.
Beads, fringe.
But I thought there's something
Pencils.
interesting to me that the relationship that a woman has with her underwear is a very intimate one. And a woman like me who only wears black, it's important to me, or it was important to me, to enter that dialogue of a woman who wants to tap into a print that's colorful and uplifting, but it's only for her.
Right.
And I thought, it's a very interesting time to really challenge myself to be part of that conversation. And technically speaking, they are incredible at, doing everything so precise on a woman's body. So we learned a ton, and I was happy and lucky that I did that collaboration while the whole conversation is what it is, because I was the first woman they appointed to do a collaboration with, and I was asked certain things, and so they gave me a platform and a voice to talk about how I see that as a woman designer, and I think that's quite generous of them to do, and it puts a lot of faith on a designer to be a spokesperson for that when you will be asked. It's not like people will just...
No, it was probably one of the most important years for Victoria's Secret, and yours was the right side of that conversation.
Yeah, unknowingly going into it, you didn't know exactly what will unfold, but whatever happens in each brand, it's a very relevant conversation, and I think you need to partake. You can't just shy away and be like, oh no, I'd rather not be part of any conversation. I think if you believe something and you've thought about it and you stand behind something, and somebody gives you an opportunity to say something about it, and obviously you feel good about the product, you want to do it, that comes first, then I think it's an opportunity more than anything else.
Do you think right now, there's so many conversations right now that are very relevant in fashion, and there is the one about body diversity and age diversity on the runway, and the sort of the new non-model models. How do you think of that, and how do you even think of like the show seasons now, because you've been in London for so long and
it's
had
so
this
interesting.
base.
Everything you're saying is exactly what we're discussing internally, and I'm sure many brands. in all honesty, and I don't think I was ready to communicate this on a stage in Atlanta
Oh, sorry.
for SCAD, but actually, I think it is important to discuss it. So one thing, I, as a designer, starting out, being 11 years in fashion now, having my own label, I never once felt I had the time to actually go to my studio and ask for them to make something for me. And I have all my friends saying, how can you not design for yourself? How can you not wear print? How can you not? And I was always like, when I'm on holiday, I always wear print. But when I'm at work, it's a uniform and it's a palette cleanser, and it is. But it's equally the result of the fact that you get so preoccupied in what you're doing that you're not thinking about how you express your work in a different context or how you express yourself. So I felt it's kind of my duty as a designer who's a fuller girl, woman, to look at our range and look at how we run our sizing and take the time to run the sizing. We currently sell up to a size 20 UK. And now we're going through the process of taking all our core silhouettes and doing the full gamma to a full size UK 26, which is
US 24?
US 22,
22, 24?
Which we couldn't do unless you take time and you have individual models being fit across all the sizes, because obviously the bigger you are, the way that your body grades up is not the same as it grades up on smaller sizes. So we wanted to take our time and do it responsibly. But to me, that's not the models you use in our show, honestly, because sometimes, you find great models of all sizes, sometimes you don't. Sometimes in London, girls don't even come, let alone wanting full diversity. Sometimes you can't even get girls. So for me, it's more important to have, real women be advocates of your clothing and wear them around the world and be able to offer that in a responsible way. So what we have started doing is building that for our own e-commerce and then offering it to wholesale accounts that already, I don't want to mention too many names, but for example, when we have a bigger size on Net-a-Porter, for us, it's the first size that goes.
Right.
And we noticed that, and I think it is because the offering is smaller. And I think women of all sizes want to be able to wear something colorful and not always default back to black or default back to what you feel comfortable in. So that's one conversation that I think is happening, and I don't think it should remain in the show. I actually think I consider that almost as a marketing ploy. I don't even find it real unless you say, I'm going full on every kind of core silhouette I'm offering is democratic to women of all sizes and ages, but we're very democratic in age. I think it was kind of a eureka moment and a full understanding of why a woman buys me when I started doing trunk shows. I don't know if it was with Neiman's or with Saks, and I started seeing a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter all coming to my trunk shows, all wearing my clothes and feeling, wow, it's incredible how, a woman of all ages buys into it for different reasons, and yet for one reason that kind of connects them all. And so I think in terms of age diversity, it's a much easier, opportunity to build, because that has to do with the aesthetic of your brand. But when it comes to size inclusivity, I think it's a shift that's happening slowly but steadily, and in a very important way that 10 years ago, that conversation was not really real. From the stores,
and it was very, very hidden as well.
Yeah.
You knew that certain brands, went to 18, but those would never be in their stores, and there was no online.
Yes.
So it's a very different moment now.
It's a very different moment, and I think there are certain people who've pioneered that, and I think it's very important, because when you start as an independent brand, if you haven't started in that way, there are complexities about doing a full size run and production. In order for you to really be doing your woman justice and not a disservice, you have to grade individually every single pattern. You have to have a pool of women that you can try things on to see, because, if you're short, if you're tall, if you're, there's so many nuances that you have to get right. So that's one. And London, I have shown as part of London Fashion Week for the past 10 years plus. But I think nowadays, I was given the opportunity to maybe show somewhere else now. And for the first time, I started thinking, actually, I I am not inspired by going around London and trying to find one more venue to show my collection and try and find the same sponsors who are going to support that show. And I don't think it helps you build a world around your brand, who you are, and contextualize that effectively, because it's the same people attending the show and you're staging it in a very similar manner, and you always want to get the girls that everyone gets, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we are now thinking of creative ways of taking the show around the world, and instead of being a fixed show as London Fashion Week, show it in a different context whenever you have an opportunity, and build a moment around that, whether it's connected to the collection, whether it's connected to the strategy of the brand going forward with certain markets. It kind of depends on timing, and logistics are incredibly difficult, but it inspires me a lot more to do that.
But, so are you thinking beyond fashion brief. So ready-to-wear collections, which Mary does, used to be shown twice a year in the 4 major cities. They're now every city seems to have a fashion week. But most designers will, for commercial reasons now, show what they call the pre-collections. People who are doing fashion marketing here would know this. So the pre-collections would be the resort season and the pre-fall season, right? And you don't show those on a runway?
No, we show them in market. Buyers come to Paris, they buy those collections. We've thematically linked now pre's and main shows because, again, my work, there's a lot of development, and we wanted more consistency on the message, because we started feeling that on the shop floor, when you have 4 collections of Mary Katrantzou in one drop, or 3 of them, you really cannot have a collection based on nostalgia and then Bauhaus and then all living together. They live as friends, but they want their moment.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. That would be,
They want a moment to shine for at least some time. So we felt that that wasn't allowing a collection to really talk, and have, a narrative and live outside the show for long enough. So now they're connected thematically, but we still do the 2 markets. So we do resort, and then we show as Fashion Week, and then we go back to Paris, and then we sell show.
So if you start showing other places in London, are you going to, and this is relevant for fashion students because going forward this could become the norm, are you thinking of showing off calendar and not showing during,
I hate that I'm talking to somebody as important as you about this so openly.
Well, no, it's so interesting because
I was not ready for It's
a very funny moment in fashion, because it's a moment in which, because of the internet, hello, Vogue runway, you should be able to show anywhere at any time and get an audience. Bless him, the late Karl Lagerfeld was brilliant at saying, we're all going to Salzburg, and everybody would tromp off to Salzburg, or we're coming to Dallas, and everyone would go to Dallas, and he would show not just to the press, but to all the clients and everyone there, and everyone in Salzburg or Dallas would go buy lots of Chanel so they could sit at that show, and he revealed to the fashion world, you take your brand with you, right? More than anyone. When you say more than anyone, he was the showman.
100%.
And now everybody does it. It's like, I'm going to Marrakesh with Dior.
Yes.
Why? Because they're going to Marrakesh. And then I think 4 days later or something, or a month later, I'm going to like China with Chloe for a pre-collection. I mean, it's nonstop now. Every week, someone is somewhere showing something to somebody. Maybe me. So, but are you going to do it during your audience, or are you going to do it based on some other calendar?
Okay. First of all, I think, because we're thinking, we thought about this because an opportunity came to showcase outside of London in a venue and in a way that I could never achieve in London. So I was so excited about this, and I was like, I should feel the same way for every show that I do, because that will show in the clothes, that will show in how my team and I put a collection together. It will show across everything. It won't be this routine of London Fashion Week, my show is on Saturday, I'm going to fight for the same kind of models, and I'm going to have an amazing audience. It's not a case of the audience itself, it's just a case of how you contextualize your brand when you're not advertising, when you don't have retail, when you are trying to create an environment. So the thought first came then, and the timing of that is, and I hope it still will happen, straight after Paris Couture.
Cool.
And my work, I feel, even though we show as part of the ready-to-wear schedule, that's early July. It would be.
Okay. If this comes to pass, it'll be somewhere just after the 4th of July.
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly right. But no one Instagram this, please. So if this were to happen, that would be the timing, and I think it's an opportunity. It doesn't matter. I don't show couture and I don't show necessarily ready to wear, and my work is somewhere in between.
Right.
And I love that there's a demi-couture now term that's been kind of thrown about, because I think my show presentations do kind of balance in between the two, and I think a presentation you would want to really communicate that from everything, you know, how you stage it, the environment, the clothes themselves. So because this is an opportunity that came to us, we already started planning what that would mean, and that would mean a similar timing for February. Mm-hmm. But you run the risk, if you do take that, it doesn't mean that you're leaving London Fashion Week. It means that if there's an opportunity to show outside, and if you have a certain idea in mind, I started mapping out, if we were to do that in the next 3 years, what would I want to do? How would I want to do it? And how can we logistically, as a small independent brand, make sure we're doing it at the best level? Because the cruise shows that you go to are of an incredible production. True. And so it's not the same. It's not like we can go and stage a production that a Chanel can stage.
That's true, but I would say that I think it is a very, and I'll get in trouble with the British Fashion Council for this, but so it's not my fault. Sorry. But I do think it's invigorating for brands to do it. I've watched with the Malevi's sisters who do the brand Rodarte, who have, you know, who are a very small independent brand. They just showed just before New York Fashion Week in Los Angeles, which is where they're from, where they've never showed, and I think it was very invigorating for them, and it made sense, and it was different. It jarred them. They couldn't go back to a hotel after. They had to go home. Like all those feelings you have on the day shifted, but that shifts everything. So whatever they do next, you know, it like frees you. It just, you know,
it frees you. I think
frees
that's exactly right. It frees you, but you also take into account that it means you're not going to get all the press that you get when you show in London. Right. You won't have all the buyers. You're staging a different kind of show. You do it a lot for your consumer, and we do have a consumer who would travel with the brand, and so I feel I can do it. If I didn't feel there was an audience to do it, then there's no point to, you know, come out of London Fashion Week or any fashion week that you're established and just like go about to a market that nobody knows you or no one cares about the show. There needs to be an integrity into thought about where you're going and why are you going there, and who are you bringing with you. So I would want to do it in a way where I'm aware that obviously the same attendance won't be if you're like going somewhere else, but I was actually very pleasantly surprised when I started asking certain people, if I did that, would you come? And everyone was like, of course we would come. I was like, okay, great, because I would hate to do a show and no one arrives.
All right. Well, I hope it's
I'm
a
not
nice
used
place.
to that.
On that note, I think I'm supposed to turn over the audience, who probably all want to go to wherever that is in early July that we don't know about. We're not Instagramming about right now. Thank you all for coming to SCAD. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Sally.